What's dangerous is when the universe pick you and you put on the magic glasses. There's rules that go with them. You can never take them off. You never see things that they're supposed to be. You see things as they are. You can never force nobody else to wear them.
I think while I lie awake and contemplate tonight are wearing me out. Well, maybe tomorrow the world will wake and get it right, but I have my doubts, yeah. During the day, well, I design machines of war that scream through the sky. 'Cause I, for one, I like to go to bed free at night under these stars and stripes. And I have my doubt that we're coming down. Yes, I have my doubts, and I have my doubts that we'll make it back out. Yes, I have my doubts, but they'll wind you up and pull the cord until you're spun right out, and I don't understand. Roll the dice and raise the price to feed the machine's mouth. Call it the progress of man. And I have my doubt that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubt. And I have my doubt that we'll make it back out. I have my doubts, so I'll drink my stuff and raise some hell and shoot my guns to the end of my time. You can have the booze and go to hell and take the guns, but I know they won't be mine. Messed up and out of touch, let's text someone who's in the other room. So don't wonder why we don't say hi or know anyone. I might as well move to the moon. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. Well, the things I think, well, I lie awake and contemplate at night. Wearing me out.
Good evening. Hope everyone is doing well. Let me turn this down a smidge. Okay. I don't want you to hear an echo, and I could hear myself pretty good in the stereo here. So, hope everyone is doing well. Man, kind of enjoyed time off, even though I didn't really spend a whole lot of time off. Friday I got to go next door and fix the brakes on the neighbor's car, so I enjoyed doing that though. Actually, I miss working on cars, and I miss working on all the different stuff that I used to work on. So, but anywho, so did that. Replaced the rear brake caliper, rotor on the same wheel, and of course the pads, and bled the brakes and all that good stuff. Friday, Jen's dad and her stepmom and niece came to visit, so we had a nice visit with them. I got more lights, man. Over in the corner, there's a couple more lights. I can't remember the name. Something King lights. Anyway, they're 200 watts at the wall, but they're rated 2,000 watt. Look like actually pretty nice lights. So I'm going to add those to the lights, and we'll see what good that brings. Aside from that, I actually haven't really touched the website for the town this weekend. Of course, Saturday was Shabbat, and I try really hard to be mindful of Shabbat, so I didn't work on it on Shabbat, and then today I didn't mess with it really. I played my game for a little while. Well, actually for several hours. I'm still trying to get past a mission. It won't let me move forward. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I don't know if it's a glitch in the game or what, but anywho, that's pretty much all I did. Now, my next project, as far as the town is concerned, I've got the base of the website. It's all in place. I think I got everything looking pretty hunky-dory for the moment. I've got commenting extension installed, and it's working. Pretty much good to go. So we got people signing up. That is a good thing, and we just go from there. What I'm going to be working on is I need to do a pretty heavily edited video. I want to do a nice video. And I just want to explain myself, my intent, and, how people can help, what it is that they need to look for on the website. And then I'm going to do other various things, like there's a meeting tomorrow, and we've got the minutes and the agenda for the meeting. Not the minutes, I'm sorry. We've got the agenda as well as the agenda packet. And so I should have done this today, but I didn't. So tomorrow, probably in the morning, I'm going to real quick do a brief on the agenda and let folks know what it is that they're going to be discussing tonight. And I guess it's a union that is asking for support. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands what it is that the meeting is going to be discussing, because of course there'll be other things aside from the EMS situation. One of the things that I did see just briefly going through the agenda was our utility rate hike, a possible utility rate hike for our electric. As I've said before, we don't pay Ameren, which is largely who controls most of Illinois' electric. We don't pay Ameren for electric. We actually pay the city. And the reason that is the city actually has its own ability to generate power, but they don't. They do have their own power station. They do have the capability of generating power for the town, but they don't. What they do is they buy power in bulk from Ameren. and then they resell it to the citizens of the town. Now, that's typically been at a better rate than what Ameren's been charging. When all these utility rates were going through the roof all around the nation, ours did not. Ours didn't even budge. And so it might be getting time that they're going to budge, because I guess the contracts came up or what have you. So I'm just guessing on that. Who knows? With everything else that's going on, who knows? But anyway, I'm going to do up just a video about what's on the agenda. And that way, because see, you have to go to the people. That's one thing that's a fact. When you're doing stuff like this, you have to go to the people, because, you know, I don't make any friends for telling the truth. I never have. But for the large part, the majority, if you expect the people to really go out of their way, it ain't going to happen. So you kind of have to, almost like feeding your kid in the high chair, right? You've got to feed them the information. Again, I know telling the truth does not make me popular. I don't care. And that's exactly when I make the video explaining who I am, what I'm about, what my intent is. You know, I don't have any stakes in this other than I want to live in a town that's free of corruption and tyranny. Other than that, I don't have a business that, you know, I need my back scratched for. I'm not running for office. There is nothing. There is absolutely nothing that I am doing this for other than the citizens of the city, the town itself. That's it. I have no other ulterior motive or anything like that. And so I want folks to know that. I want them to know that this is coming from the right place. I'm not expecting anything from it. I am not looking for support. I don't want them to support me. I want them to support their town. Has nothing to do with me. I'm just the monkey pushing buttons. And as I've said before, I know how the internet works. I know how the people work. And I know how people on the internet work. And that reverts back to what I was saying, where you got to kind of beat them in the high chair kind of thing, or else they're not going to go out of their way to get the information. And that's the intent of the website, because that way everything will be there. It'll be simple for them to navigate through. It'll be easy for them to know what's going on. It's one place where they can get all the different information they'll need. You know, I want to have the voting records and all that of the council members and all that stuff. I want it all, as I've called it before, one-stop shop to understand what is going on politically in our little town. That way, we can possibly get as many eyes on it paying attention as we can, and maybe we can have more than 600 some odd people show up to vote. So, a town of just over 10,000 or so, we should be having more than 600 some odd people, almost 700 people, I guess, show up to vote. So, that is what my intent is. And I want to make a nice video. I'm going to use drone footage that I've taken since I've had the drones. You know, I've taken videos here and there when I've flown the drones across the town. I didn't say that. Not across the town. Within visual flight range. Yeah, like that. Anyway, I'm going to take some video from that, and then I'm going to take some of the panoramic pictures of the sunrises and sunsets, and I'll just, you know, make them pan across the screen and stuff. I'm just going to do a nicely edited video. I'll do the audio up in clips. You know, I will discuss the subject and then stop, discuss the subject and then stop, and then what I will actually do is just cut the audio out of that. There will probably be very little to know of me, the back of my head. There might be like just bits and pieces somewhere, and I'm actually going to explain that, because I don't want, you know, I don't want anybody to, for any reason, think that I may not be an honest person with them, or that I may not. So I'm going to tell them that you're going to see the back of my head because I don't have teeth. And that's just the way it is. I have no problem saying that. So I just want folks to know where I stand, that I am not looking for anything out of this at all, other than for them to get behind responsible choices in their city. That's it. That's it. And the reason why I keep bringing it up during the show is because I'm telling you, I lead by example. I'm not somebody that just gets out there and just runs their mouth. There's too many of them on YouTube. A lot of mouth runners, not a lot of doers. And so I want to show people, look, and it's not about me. My hope is that people out there that might have tyranny, might have corruption in their town, and pretty much everybody could probably raise their hand on that, maybe they'll get the initiative to stand up and do whatever they can to fix the problem. I love this town. I lived here ever since I was 5 years old. I absolutely love this town. I will go to my grave saying that I grew up in the best place at one of the best times possible. And I mean that. I realize I'm probably biased on that, but it was just, my buddy Eric, I've talked about Eric before, my buddy that passed away at the age of 21. He had told me one time I was having relationship troubles, and I was pretty heartbroken. And he told me, he's like, love's like a rose. You hold on to it too loosely, it'll slip away. But if you hang on to it too tightly, you'll crush it. And there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of truth to that. I'll never forget that advice from him. I had hell being able to put that advice into action, but I'll never forget it nonetheless. This town, I love it dearly. I really, truly do. And, the reason I said that quote from Eric is because that's kind of the way that this town was, I mean, if we got too stupid, we'd get called out for it. We'd get in trouble for it. But at the same time, there was enough freedom that we could be a little stupid. And, we didn't wind up in a world of crap over it. I could talk to you, but I could tell you some funny stories. I'll share one before we go further. Me and my best friend from high school, we were cruising around, might have been smoking a little bit of the green stuff, and we're driving around right in town, right? And so I just pulled one out and sparked it up and handed it to my best buddy. And he grabbed it, and he's sitting there hitting on it, and about that time, cop car lights turn on behind me. And he's like, dude, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I'm like, dude, we're going to lose it. We're going to smoke as much of that damn thing as we can before we do lose it. I said, we're already busted, man. It's not like they're not going to be able to smell it. And so sure enough, we're passing it back and forth as he's walking. I'm not going to give his name because I don't want to cause any problems, but we're passing it back and forth while he's walking up to the car. And I roll down the window, and he was getting ready to say, what are you up to tonight? And, or something to that effect. And he's like, now look. he's like, you two need to get home. He goes, you get straight home. I don't want to see you out tonight. Or see you out again tonight. And it was hilarious, because sure enough, I took CJ back to his place. I think we sat around and played some video games for a little while. Some Sega CD. I think Sega CD, unless that wasn't out yet, then it was just Sega. But nonetheless, we played that for a little while, and then I drove home. But, that's one of those instances to where, yeah, I could have been facing, if he wanted to be a jerk, I could have been facing, paraphernalia charges for the papers. I could be facing weed charges for the weed. And then if he really wanted to be a horse's ass, he could have got me for driving, under the influence. But he didn't. He didn't. Same cop. And again, I'm not going to give out his identity. But I don't know what I was doing that night, but my alternator went out on my car. And I'm like, damn, and it's nighttime. I've got my headlights on and all that. And I'm like, I've got to get this thing home. So I just bolted straight for home. Well, I just kind of made a rolling stop through the four-way stop intersection. And I saw a car there. I didn't realize it was him. I didn't know it was a cop. But I saw a car there, but it wasn't at the stop sign yet. I was there first. So I just rolled the stop. And just that quick, those cherries came on. And, I pull off to the side of the road. He gets out, walks up. What are you doing? Because, I drove crazy, but I wasn't about just blowing stop signs and just being that ignorant, especially with other vehicles. And all I said was, my alternator went out. I'm trying to get this thing home. And he's like, oh, be safe. Talk to you later. That's it. That's it. I mean, that, in my opinion, was absolutely incredible. That's probably why I get so upset at the tyrannical cops. And they're not all tyrants, but that's why I get so upset, because I've seen the other side. I dealt with a lot of really incredible law enforcement right here in this town. Even the rookie that was the pain in the ass, and I won't name him either. It still wasn't that bad. It really wasn't that bad. He was all right. And then my last dealings that I had with the police department, I actually dealt with him. And it was, I think, shortly before he retired. That's a long time, right? I was a teenager when he started. He was a rookie, and then, like I said, I dealt with him shortly before he retired. And I have to say that interaction that I had with him was very pleasant, very professional, and I walked out of there with a whole different view of him. I really did. And it was nice to see that contrast from the rookie to the cop that was trying to understand your position. And so that was kind of cool. But that's why I'll fight for this town. Because this is just such an incredible place. I mean, I call it a Mayberry, because in some senses it kind of is. And that's awesome. But we're losing that. We're losing it partially because there's, and pardon the language or the way I word this, but partially because the transplants are now in the city board positions, even in some of the appointed positions in the city. And if you want to keep your town the way it was, you better keep people in those positions that are from here. And so that is kind of one of the things that I want to talk to the people of the town through the website and through the Facebook group and whatnot. That's one of the things I want to talk with them about too. That, hey, look, if we want things to be the way they were, then we need to have people in office that know the ways they were and want that same thing. So I highly encourage you. And you know me, I'm not big on promoting voting. I'm not big on promoting government, politics, or anything like that. But your local area is where you do have a say. Absolutely. And if you can absolutely pack those polling booths with people voting for good people, you're going to make a major effect, a positive effect on your town. So I can't urge that enough. Federal elections and that nonsense, that is what it is, right? I still feel the very same that I always have about that. But local, you do have a say in your local. And if you don't, then you need to fix that. And that's the problem we have. Our people aren't being represented, I don't think. And so it's got to get fixed. But anyway, aside from that, I've only got 5 articles up tonight. And 3 of them are to do with Putin. Well, yeah, Putin. And then a couple of one with Zelensky. And then some crazy advice for the UK. I been paying attention to the news over the weekend, as I always do. Oh, one of the things I have is there's some interesting things going on when it comes to the Russian elections now, and I want to point that out. Her siren, not exactly the same, but very, very, very similar oddities, anomalies, if you will, like we've had here. So I think I hear a couple of different sirens. Yikes. Small town, smallish town, usually not a whole lot of excitement, so yeah, definitely multiple sirens. I hear 3 different sirens. I can't tell if the girl's SUV is home or not. I think I see it over there. Might see them flying out of the driveway any moment. They're both on the volunteer fire department. Anyway, it's not me. I didn't do it this time. So let's talk a little bit about Putin. NATO has boots on the ground in Ukraine, says Putin. Says here, it is no secret that NATO soldiers are present on the ground in Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said, noting that those service members are facing extremely grim prospects. Speaking to his supporters and reporters on Sunday night after the end of his presidential election, in which he is expected to win by a landslide, Putin stressed that Moscow was well aware of the U.S.-led military bloc's push to deploy troops in Ukraine. We hear both French and English speech there. There is nothing good in this, first of all for them, because they die there and in large numbers, he said. He also weighed in on the potential full-scale conflict between NATO and Russia, warning that it could not be ruled out. Anything is possible in the modern world, but everyone knows that this would be one step shy of a full-scale World War III. I think that means full-scale World War III. I don't think that anyone is interested in that. French President Emmanuel Macron suggested last month that the West cannot exclude the possibility of sending soldiers to aid Ukraine. Later, he also described Russia as an adversary, insisting, however, that Paris is not waging war on Moscow. Commenting on Macron's remarks, Putin noted that while NATO troops in Ukraine are expected to act as an auxiliary force helping Kiev train its military, this is not much different from what mercenaries are doing there now. Russia, he added, wants France not to escalate the conflict, but to help find a peaceful solution to hostilities. So, pretty much the same thing he's been saying all along. He's not really changed his tune a whole lot. So, he does have something to say about the U.S., though. U.S. is not a democracy, says Putin. Says here, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that by criticizing democratic processes in other states, all while using their own administrative resources to suppress one of the American presidential candidates, Washington has become a laughingstock of the rest of the world. speaking to the journalists at his campaign headquarters in Moscow on early Monday morning after the preliminary results indicated his victory with over 87% of the vote in the country's presidential elections. The Russian leader said that the whole world is laughing at what is happening in the U.S. True statement. We are behaving with more restraint than their opponents in other countries, but this is just a catastrophe, not a democracy. That's what it is, Putin said. Putin noted that the U.S. administration is using all its power and resources to attack one of the presidential candidates, apparently referring to former President Donald Trump, who is facing a litany of lawsuits despite being the front-runner and virtually the only remaining Republican hopeful. In a pre-election interview earlier this week, Vladimir Putin said that Russia does not meddle in foreign elections and will work with any elected U.S. president. I think it's obvious to everyone that the American political system cannot claim to be democratic in any sense of the word, he said in an interview with journalist Dmitry Kiselyov. Putin refused to comment further on the current presidential campaign in the U.S., but described the atmosphere as becoming increasingly uncivilized. So that was interesting. Now, before I cover the next article, I want to say that I firmly believe that Putin won. Putin probably did win by a landslide for multiple reasons. For one, he's been a good president of their country. There's no arguing that. For two, just like any other country, this is a wartime situation. And in most cases, in most countries, a wartime president will get reelected. So, all considered, he probably did win by a landslide. I want to make that clear. But what I am also seeing is a lot of room for some tomfoolery. And maybe it didn't happen this time, but who's to say it won't happen the next time? In fact, technically, Putin shouldn't even be allowed to be president at this point because he had already served out the amount of terms that he could. I think even before this election. I think the election prior, was the first election that he had already been there longer than when he first became president, what their laws were then. Yeah, so I think this is the second election that he's been there that goes beyond what initially their laws were when he became president to begin with. It would be like, say, Biden getting a second term, okay? I'm just saying, and then changing the laws and serving 2 more terms. So, pretty much the same concept. Lord, no. I don't think we got to worry about that, though, because no matter how good Walt Disney is with animatronics, I think that machine's about to break down. So, Russian presidential elections 2024, new voting options, and record turnout. Seems like we heard something like this in 2020, did we not? Check this out. Not the same, but could have the same amount of, playing around. It says Russia has concluded voting in the 7th presidential election of its modern history. This time voting was held over 3 days and saw 4 new Russian regions, Kherson, Zaporozhye, as well as Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics, were able to take part. Election 2024's ballot papers offered a choice of 4 candidates. Apart from the incumbent leader Vladimir Putin, all other candidates were nominated by their parliamentary parties. President Vladimir Putin, who ran as an independent, was expected to win by a wide margin, according to exit polls. Number 1, record turnout. We've heard this story. A record number of people have voted in this election. More than 74% of Russia's 112.3 million voters cast their ballots between March 15th and 17th, the Russian Central Election Commission said on Sunday. This is the highest engagement in the nation's modern history, unseen for more than 2 decades. A previous similar turnout was recorded in 1991 at the first and only presidential elections in the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic. That's why I had to read that twice. When Russia was still a part of the USSR. At that time, around 74% of voters turned out to cast their votes, or they were shot. Now, I added that last part. The average turnout in the presidential elections in modern Russia ranged between 64% and 69%. The ballot held in 2018 had a turnout of around 67%. Number 2. First vote in new territories. It was the first time people in the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics, as well as in Kherson and Zaporozhye regions, were able to take part in Russian presidential elections. All 4 regions joined Russia after referendums in September 2022. The new territories demonstrated high turnout figures at the vote, which amounted to 83.7%, 85%, 87%, and 88% for the Kherson and Zaporozhye LPR and DPR, respectively. No voting was held in the provincial capitals of Kherson and Zaporozhye, which are controlled by the Ukrainian military. Number 3. New rules and voting options. It was also the first time presidential elections in Russia were held over 3 days for 12 hours daily between March 15th and 17th. The new voting window was adopted by lawmakers and signed by President Putin in 2020. The decision was justified by the need to provide people with wider range of options for exercising their voting rights. Russians could cast their ballot at any time between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. local time on any of the 3 days. So that's kind of one thing. They extended the voting period. Residents of almost 30 Russian regions, including Moscow, also had the opportunity to vote online. In the Russian capital, residents whose identities had already been verified, imagine that, with various state online services could do that right away by using the federal or local electronic services portal. Okay? So online voting was introduced. In other regions, a preliminary request was required. A state online voting monitor reported that more than 4.7 million people registered for electronic voting, and 94% of these exercised their rights online, which that kind of reminds me of mail-in ballots. So, just saying, not the same as the United States, but I've got the same kind of suspicion. Although, and that's why I said right up front, I think that he probably did win it by a landslide. But in my opinion, what they have done is they've put in place some mechanisms for in case somebody doesn't, like next time. And then it talks about election disruption attempts. There was a couple of events that went on. Some crazy whacked out lady, like, what was it that she did? Apparently, 8 cases, suspects tried to set the boxes on fire. Let's see. I forget, some lady tried to pour something, I think, on it or something. Oh, a young woman threw a Molotov cocktail at a polling station entrance. That's what it would have been. Let's see. Another one set off a powerful firecracker, insurrection, in the building where a polling station was located. So that evacuated some 50 people, it said. So there was some tomfoolery that went around from the, I'm just going to say the liberal side, because that's probably pretty accurate. Number 5, candidates. The current election is the 5th for Russia's incumbent leader. 5th, yeah. Vladimir Putin, as of 2018, he was running as an independent while also enjoying the support of several political forces, including the governing United Russia Party and the opposition party Fair Russia for Truth, as well as the Rodina Party. Much of his program was outlined in his recent address to the Federal Assembly. Putin's major policy goals include fighting poverty, supporting families with children, and strengthening Russia's economic independence. The Communist Party nominated Nikolai Katanov a veteran politician who had already ran for president in 2004 but lost to Putin and took second place at that time. At this year's elections, he was running with a program including a progressive tax scale, abolishing taxes for low-income citizens, and lowering the retirement age. Huh. Imagine that. The right-wing Liberal Democratic Party, there's the Libbies, was represented by its new leader, Leonid Slutsky. Are anybody surprised by that? Leonid Slutsky, who took over after the passing in 2022 of its longtime head, Vladimir Zernovsky, something like that, seen as hawkish. Slutsky advocates closer cooperation with Asian countries while considering the West to be a threat. He is also calling for tighter control over foreign agents and for accelerating Russia's military campaign against Ukraine. Their campaign against Ukraine. I don't know why. It didn't sound right in my head. Anyway, projected results. I already told you they suspect that Putin's going to win by a landslide. And I would say that that's probably correct, to be honest. Just saying. All right, coffee, vapes. Then we'll talk about Zelensky. Because this article, in my opinion, is directly related to the next article, which may not have anything to do with us yet, but stay tuned. Coffee. Oh, man. I rebuilt 3 pods today for my my little nighttime pod e-cigs. I'm good to go for those for a little while. Those pods have blasted me forever. The green apple one was getting a little gnarly. I mean, I probably vaped on that pod for at least a month and a half, if not a couple of months. Insane long time. I only use them at night. Well, that, and if I got the headset on, the VR headset, I'll put them on the desk right here in front of me, because that way I'm not grabbing this big thing, knocking it over. But I don't have the helmet on much, so. Or the headset. Okay. Zelensky draft leaving Ukrainian villages without men, says Washington Post. Now, we've covered many articles over the span of time here involving the military troops in Ukraine. We've talked about how all the different drafts that they've had. We've also talked about how much of their military were aging people, and as you can see, Humpty Dumpty showed up, so that is what it is. They're running out of people. Let me read this article, and like I say, I really firmly believe that this has an effect on the next article, and I think that it's not going to stop in the UK. I think we're going to see it too. It says here, some Ukrainian villages and small towns have lost most of their adult males due to the aggressive mobilization tactics of army recruiters as they struggle to refill the ranks of depleted forces, according to a report by the Washington Post. Now, I even question how intentional that is. It says in an article published on Saturday, the outlet detailed the plight of the village of Makov in the Khmelnytsky region of western Ukraine, where virtually every man of fighting age has been killed, wounded, or gone missing, with the remaining few being hunted down by draft officers. It's just a fact most of them are gone, Larisa Badna, deputy director of the local school, which keeps a database of students whose parents are deployed, told the outlet. People are being caught like dogs on the street, noted another resident whose husband was forcefully drafted last year despite a medical condition that was meant to exempt him from military service. The whole village was taken this way, her mother-in-law added. The newspaper noted that a sense of resentment is steadily growing among the civilian population, with the majority feeling that their men have been targeted disproportionately compared to larger cities, where it is easier to go into hiding. Residents say that even those already serving in the Army and those people below the draft age are being stopped and questioned on the streets. Multiple videos of troops forcing men into vehicles have surfaced online in recent months, sparking rumors of kidnappings, contributing to panic among locals. Ukraine announced a general mobilization shortly after the start of the conflict with Russia in February 2022, but thousands of men have since managed to flee. Following the failed counteroffensive in the summer of last year, Kiev was desperate to replenish its ranks, seeking to mobilize up to 500,000 new recruits. In late January, Ukrainian lawmakers passed the first reading of a revised mobilization bill aimed at increasing the military ranks by lowering the conscription age from 27 to 25 and tightening draft conditions. The Russian military estimated Kiev's casualties at over 444,000 killed or severely injured. As of the end of February, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky claimed last month that only 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers had been killed in 2 years of hostilities with Russia, a figure that even journalists sympathetic to the Ukrainian cause have called implausibly low. And that is correct. I mean, that, to me, that's just crazy. But this is where I think this is going to go. EU state urges UK to introduce conscription. Now, they're not going to say it's for Ukraine, but it's probably for Ukraine. It says here Britain and other NATO allies should consider military conscription to counter the supposed threat from Russia, the Latvian foreign minister told The Telegraph in an interview published on Saturday. Latvia reintroduced compulsory military service earlier this year in response to the Russia-Ukraine conflict to increase the size of its active and ready reserve. The updated rules oblige all male Latvian citizens aged 18 to 27 to complete 1 year of service, including those living abroad. When asked whether the UK and other countries should follow suit, Christianis Cairns said, "We would strongly recommend this. We are developing and flushing out a system of what we call a total defense involving all parts of civil society." The Latvian diplomat also urged London to raise its defense spending to 3% of gross domestic product, describing the move as inevitable. NATO countries should consider a total defense model in which large numbers of citizen soldiers could be potentially called up at short notice, according to the minister. Latvia has borrowed elements from the Finnish conscription system, which could be a very good model for many of us, Karen said, adding that Finland has a small standing army, but a very large, very well-trained wartime reserve, so they can easily call up a 250,000 trained military. In January, the UK Chief of General Staff Patrick Sanders called for training and equipping civilians for a potential call-up in the event of a direct conflict with Russia. However, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak insisted that there are no plans to introduce conscription. Britain's Army, Navy, and Air Force had 184,865 active duty personnel as of late 2023, the lowest figure since the end of the Napoleonic Wars, and I know I said that wrong. The Army has seen its headcount shrink from more than 100,000 in 2010 to 75,983 at the end of last year. Latvia has been on the front line of West's confrontation with Moscow, along with Estonia and Lithuania, since the launch of the Russians' military operation in Ukraine. The former Soviet republic, which shares a 284-kilometer border with Russia, joined the EU and NATO in 2004 and abolished conscription in 2006. The Latvian armed forces have served in U.S.-led overseas expeditions, including Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq. So, I would expect that the same kind of recommendation is going to go for the United States. And I can't honestly rule out a situation like that. Not with what we see going on. I hate to say it, but I think it might be coming. A lot of indicators are pointing to that. I have a sip of coffee here. Actually moving through these pretty quick tonight. Good deal. I'm up for relaxing. Okay. France to propose Olympic ceasefire for Ukraine conflict, says Macron. Trump warns of bloodbath if he loses, and it didn't really go down like that. That's how the media's reporting it. But it's more the same old, taking things out of context, misrepresenting it kind of thing. He did not intend that in any kind of way that if he loses, people were just going to start, burning up buildings or, starting neighborhoods like Chaz and Chop or anything like that. I mean, that's totally not the red team thing. It's ridiculous how they twist words. EU state urges UK to introduce I covered that. Only 40 Russians will compete in Olympics, says IOC. Russian forces liberate settlement in Zaporozhye region, says MOD. Ukraine almost ran out of air defense missiles, says Washington Post. Crimea River. U.S. prosecutors want 50-year sentence for Bankman-Fried, the dude that got involved in that crypto scam crap. Russia downs Ukrainian helicopter. Drone attacks military base in Transnistria, says media. Beijing sees winter off like Russians do. Okay. Zelensky is one of the greatest salesmen in history, says Trump. I would have to agree. And he's not even really that good. It's just the people that are listening to him are that stupid. Polling stations close in Russia's presidential election. Putin appears set for landslide win, says Russia's election commission. Explosion rocks Russian polling station. That was like an explainer thing. Russian election clerk killed in Ukrainian shelling, says authorities. Covered that article. People are the power in Russia, says Putin. Putin reveals Navalny was to be swapped. I guess he was going to swap Navalny for somebody else. I guess that the U.S. is holding. I'm sitting there thinking, we would totally do that. Biden would totally do that. NATO has, cover that. And that. Russia could establish Russia could establish sanitary zone in Ukraine, says Putin. That's much different than providing sanitary napkins in the boys' bathrooms, but we won't go there. Moscow responds to West election criticism. Ooh. Anyway, those are the headlines. I did it all in under an hour, and I want a cookie. Okay, maybe not. Yeah, actually I do. I want a cookie. Oatmeal raisin would be incredible right now. So, but anyway, I got no cookie. So I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to pout because I'm cookieless. Anyway, I am going to get out of here. I got a couple of videos to work on tomorrow. So I hope you all have a good evening. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. I hope to see you again. As always, God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit. And shalom.